Hey, how you guys doing? I was watching some Scrub stories and I was like, you know what? Crazy babysitter. Alright, so I looked it up on Reddit and here's this guy's story. I don't even know where to start this story. I was kind of young at the time, around 7 or 8, but old enough to know what was going on. I lived in a pretty decent neighborhood, but my family was in the process of moving. There was a large mixture of families with children and retired seniors living on my street. There was a neighborhood babysitter who took care of my younger sister when she was too young to go to school. She also happened to babysit me on multiple occasions. She was always kind of rude, a pudgy lady with 2 annoying sons, and a very weird husband. A lot of kids got taken care of by her, so my parents trusted her to take care of us. Everything was somewhat normal, except for the fact that she was kind of rude to anybody that wasn't her kid. Her kids were pretty misbehaved. They were always fighting each other with plastic swords and screaming at the top of their lungs. At one point, the younger toddler had a nap, and she forced all the children to sit in a corner and be quiet beside her kids. Odd behavior for a babysitter, but we never thought much about it. Another thing to mention, she took naps while babysitting, as in she didn't pay attention to the kids. She shooed them away and fell asleep. She also got really notorious for giving her sons chocolate milk and telling others they had to just have water. My sister and I tried to ignore it, but eventually we were just really annoyed. My sister had a loud mouth, so she told my mom about how they treats the kids and how she babysits. I'm gonna be honest, I've had a long night, alright? It's about 2 o'clock. I've been posting so many videos. But anyway, I tried to ignore it, but eventually we were kind of annoyed. My sister had a loud mouth, so she told my mom about how she treats the kids versus the way she babysits. I'd also like to acknowledge that my sister had just turned 4, so she wasn't great with words. So, my mom was angry at the babysitter because she did that, but let it slide. As we were moving in a month, and she didn't know if we were going to be completely honest. What? I'm sorry, but this person does a terrible job writing. Like, I'm trying to make this sound the best I can, but they suck at typing. The house we moved into was a house. Dog. The house we moved into is the house. I'm sorry, but they did a really bad job of putting apostrophes and periods. I spent a large majority of my childhood / teen years in. Things were normal once we transitioned into a new house, until we got calls. We changed our phone numbers, so we weren't sure how the babysitter and her husband found it so quickly. She called every day saying that we needed to pay her, and that we owed her money. She was just angry that we had moved, and we currently on the lookout for other babysitters that were closer to our home. My parents received these calls every day and consisted of my babysitter of her husband screaming, which meant that I could hear the voicemail / call quite clearly. They kept harassing us. My parents grew agitated and worried. It all ended one night around 10 p.m. when my sister and I woke up to the sound of banging at the front door. It continued for a good 10 minutes and was very loud. My sister's freaking out, so I decided to go see if my parents were awake. They were. They were just opening up their eyes and kind of confused as what was going on. My dad told my mom to stay upstairs, and he foolishly went downstairs to get the door as I stood at the railing nervously. My sister stayed in the room because she was unaware as to what was actually happening. When he opened up the door, I felt sick and terrified. There was my babysitter and her husband who managed to find our only address. Also, all she had was our phone. The husband started screaming at the top of the lungs, yelling, "You owe us money, pay us," and shaking a knife. Yes, he had a knife in his hand. My dad told him that we didn't have to, and he warned him to leave unless he wanted the cops to be called. He didn't care. My dad went to the door, and he stuck his foot in to attempt to get inside. My babysitter was also yelling, but I couldn't hear what she had said. We had a phone upstairs, so my mother quietly called the cops as my dad struggled to get the door closed. Once he did, the bangings and screaming continued. They wouldn't leave our property. I was so freaked out I started crying. My sister saw me crying and she did the same. Long story short, about an hour later they left and the cops arrived, having just missed them. My parents knew their info based on the fact that they babysat us, so it wasn't hard to track them, and they were arrested. I always wonder if their children were home or alone at a sleepover, especially at a time this late. Regardless, they were released a few days ago, but we're not allowed to step foot near our house. Or they aren't allowed to step a foot near our house. I'm not sure if the woman still babysits, but if she does, I feel terrible for the kids. We never really. I don't know why he said he feels terrible for the kids when he just said that the mom treats all the kids greatly. Anyway, that's a whole entire story. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and yeah.
Yeah. My dad used to say, whatever is whatever. Never may be never, but it's ever.